Is it better? Yes. Do I like it? Ugh. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil from that to do into have it on me and keep it on me at all times. Another fun fact: here we are to do a breakdown and review of chapter 227 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, which is known as Leonis in Bedlam. And this, like a couple other previous videos, has been already recorded, but I was heavily sick at the time, and I think I'm mostly like, let me wear some wood. Knock on wood. Hopefully your boy's back to normal. Well, because of how bad that in the live reaction sounded, because it was coffee every 2 seconds. I ended up really want to release that one. It also was really short. I feel like I missed a lot of stuff in that review because it was like the last review I did of the day. So I do want to go through this chapter more in depth because it does contain a whole lot of juicy, meaty, thick, complicated stuff that I do need to talk about more in depth. So let's review chapter 227. Leonis in Bedlam. So we open up with a nice calm little cover page on Meliodas aura farming. If only this chapter would continue with Meliodas aura farming. If only. If only. But that aside, hopping into it, we see the after effects of Bond being made old. And let me just read the whole page before I reach into the narrative and then reach out of the narrative to grab Nakamazuki by the throat. But we hear Meliodas in the Bondiska as he runs over to a now clearly very old Bond. As Kath is admittedly doing a little bit of aura farming himself, handheld out, presumably manipulating Bond's time still actively, or at least passively, as he considers the spell, active, but it's not really. We'll get into it in a second. But with it being the case, we see Kath turn. And go, "Thank you, King of Fairies. Huh? You kindly reminded me that this monster is human." There were some of my my fellow good men, my fellow King Copers, if you will, my fellow King Copium hoppers. There were some of us fighting for our lives, being like, "No, it wasn't King. It wasn't King. It was coincidence. No, Kath literally forgot. King actively sold the bag. And I'll admit though, I was actually genuinely shocked. In fact, let me go run back in time to go pull up the poll. When I asked if chapter 226 was worthy, I was actually kind of expecting people to be like, well, the hype moments in aura though. I was really not really expecting people to be like, eh? But if I'm not mistaken, even on the poll, people were like, yeah, it was only 146 votes. But out of the 146 votes, 88% said, "What on earth are the Sins cooking?" While 12% were like, "Of course the chapter is gas." And like, I did see some defense, and I'll address those defenses real quick. There is truth to the idea that they didn't know as an actual factual that Arthur was Carther, right? Like, they didn't know that for sure. And at least I would let that slide if Gother didn't explicitly talk with a character who appeared in this chapter, who told him explicitly, "Hey, BT Dubs, yeah, that's not Arthur Rover." But you know what? In fact, hold on, let me go, because I was gonna use that, like that's the counter argument. But in their defense, it was literally not even that long. It was like chapter 222, right? 222? No, not 222. But yeah, before that. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me think. It was 218 then? Maybe 218? No, it was before 218. There we go. It was 216. Let me see. Gother, who is explicitly there during the Gawain reveal chapter and all the mess that was, specifically, hold on, there's a way to fight back against chaos. Is this true? Tell me about it. Sorry, I can't write here, but now, okay, I'll even pull it up so we can read together. Sorry, I can't write here. What? Why not? You never know what terms of Camelot may be hiding here, zoning on us that much of a game changer as enough power to deal favorably occasionally at all. But that truly existence doesn't matter at all. Let's get back to the original problem here. Yada 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 yada, making Gawain an infinitely less interesting character. Blah 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 blah. Okay, you know what? I'll give it a pass because we're almost stupid, right? Like I think actually. So the defense works. They didn't know, and Merlin was not clear enough. She did not say it wasn't Arthur. I was conflating the very end of the chapter with Merlin saying it wasn't Arthur. We fight back in chaos if you see come seek me. Blah, 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 blah. But I'll give the Sins a pass in this. They didn't know that Arthur was Carther, so they probably didn't think he would have the same like endless battle immortality stamina thing. I don't know why, because they still knew chaos, right? like they still do. Like, this is a guy who did create the entirety of Camelot, which is what they know as a multi-dimensional realm. Like, I don't know why I didn't think the guy would have the same immortality thing that Cath, who, from their knowledge, had a lesser portion of chaos. I don't know why they wouldn't think that Arthur had also transcended life and death, even if they thought it was chaos Arthur, and they're surprised that now Cath has that? Fine, but I'll give it a pass. They didn't know Carther was Arthur, so that's, like, the main defense I've seen. However, it still doesn't excuse the rest of their stupidity, and in fact, the rest of their stupidity is still very much active in this chapter. I get the concern for Bon, but notably, the whole events of this chapter only happen because they refuse to keep pressure on Cath for genuinely no reason, as the majority of the kingdom is already evacuated, except one person who is at the end of this chapter. I'm not sure what they're going to do next chapter, because I haven't read next chapter yet. I haven't done a live reaction. I'm going to do a live reaction review for that one, to make up for not doing a live reaction review for this one. But, with it being the case, King giving up the game on Bond because King was standing around talking, still bad. Like, it almost, how do I put this? It negates the aura farming to make your characters this stupid. Like, here's the thing. I, as many others, am extremely happy that at least Meliodas and Mon, and to some degree with King 1v2ing the four evils, go through 1v1 in KSM World Aid, and Diane, maybe in base, presumably in base, like 1v... Brain? Synapses? Fire? Diane 1v1 in KSM Pelgard. Like, clearly showing even the weakest of the Sins are able to contend with evils, which the four knights that aren't named Lance were actually struggling with. Great, good to see their experience and their abilities still match up well enough there. But for them to be this dumb, for them to be this stupid, for them to be this idiotic, even once the truth is revealed to them, it's not good. And it makes the characters feel dumb. Very specifically, them taking their time with Cath, when they already fought Cath in the past and knew for a fact, like, remember, I think a big important thing that's super important to remember, Cath had literally almost one-shot GG'd all of them if it wasn't for Arthur, already. Like, that happened. If you've forgotten, he literally almost Oko one-shot GG'd them when he was weaker. So when they find out, oh, the real Chaos Man that's been organizing everything is Cath, the fact that they stand around and don't super gank him to oblivion, it's stupid, and and that's the last I'll talk of, like, the mistakes of last chapter. I mean, obviously the mistakes of last chapter bleed heavily into this chapter, but don't worry, there's more than enough stupid in this chapter too for me to get angry about. But, with it being the case, King did remind Cath that Bond was human. And we see King go, what did you do to him? And we see Bond on his knees, and long-haired and long-bearded, as Meliodas goes, oh no, look at you! And we see even Corchusley jingle uselessly against the ground as Bond goes, oh, sweet mother of mercy, bro. The air of purgatory didn't affect me internally one bit. Now my organs are failing. That fucks funny. And you know, it may be a tiny bit of the Bond slanderer in me. That's like, we love seeing Bond down. But it's also, because I know it, like, unless it's truly, unless we are really, 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 like, really diverting away from the original timeline, then technically, this shouldn't matter. like he's gonna be fine. Like, he's not gonna die as an old man, because he didn't die as an old man to Lance. Like, technically, we're still building to that point. So I'm iffy on whether to actually take this seriously for Bond. Even I do think he may die, if not to Cath. But I still do find it funny that he even points out the discrepancy of his age. It's something that he probably, like, reckoned with a little bit. And, this is, once again, I won't blame this chapter for it, but to go back to what I think is one of the dumbest decisions that Bond made in the original series, when there was a much easier way to do the exact same thing that he wanted. And I'm pretty sure, and you can correct me on this if I am wrong, but a big issue that Bond was going to run into already, and really Bond and Lane were going to run into, was the idea that Bond was mortal again, right? Like, Bond's humanity, in fact, it's literally a video I made on the channel forever ago now, talking about how Bond giving up his immortality in order to resurrect Lane was, like, the stupidest thing he could have done. And the reason I said that is because he just switched their positions. where Bon was now going to live forever without Elaine. Now Elaine is going to basically live forever without Bon. We have never, I'm saying this confident, while fairies do apparently have like a shorter confirmed lifespan, at least for royal fairies directly born from the sacred tree, not a single one of them has ever died from old age. I always go back to this. Gorhane is 3,000 plus years old, and Elaine is like barely 1,000. So I always talked about like the weird morbidity of like, okay, I guess the only way that Elaine would ever actually get to spend a majority of her time with Bon, or not abandon Bon extensively after he revived her, would for her to go to the, let's just say go to the capital of the dead willingly. You know what I mean when I say that. And the reason I say that was a dumb decision all the way back there, and it's part of what I've also talked about in a previous video, like the great nerf. Like, I don't know what it is. It felt like Nakaba, well, probably because he knew he was writing a sequel series. But it's very, like, especially looking at it now, from years later now, like over 5 years later from the end of Sevendeadlysins, and looking at it now, as a person from the future, the great nerf, the great, like, macro nerf that Nakaba did for the Sins at the end of Sevendeadlysins, killing Escanor, making Meliodas get rid of true magic, taking away Bon's immortality, telling us that when King splits his spirit spirits, it doesn't actually make him stronger, it makes him weaker. Diane was always buns, like, she didn't really get a nerf, other than the fact that her max power is locked behind a dance that we don't even know if she does all the time, and Gother's always just been a bum, and then Merlin just gets removed from the narrative extensively, until she pops back up later on in the chapter. But, all that aside, knowing that now, and thinking about, like, the great nerf that happened there, I don't know why, if he was still going to glaze the Sins immensely. Like, you could have just gone down the sealing route. The sealing route that you introduced in part 1, Nakaba, to seal the Sins away. Maybe like, well, what about Bon? Bon's a human. Throw him in a separate dimension. Unless you're going to pull a super boo and let Bon scream his way out of a dimension. It doesn't matter how strong he is, as long as he gets locked in a pocket dimension by himself. You could have still sealed away all the Sins at their max prime true powers, and just made Chaos stronger than True Magic Bell. Which you already did. Like, there's a whole Q&A talking about how Meliodas is almost as strong as Hawkmama, which we know Hawkmama equals Chaos. So like, you're already set up like back then in the power scaling already. You didn't have to nerf any of them. And one of the weird things about this nerf, and let me circle this back to the point, Bon didn't have to give up his immortality. He could have still been immortal. And Elaine still could have been fine. Remember, Elaine was already back in the real world. She was just tired. And of course, maybe like, well, that was based on Malaski's spell. That couldn't have been permanent. Merlin could have just casted Infinity Enhance on that. She could have just permanently made the spell permanent. It's like Elaine was... I still genuinely... In fact, I almost want to go back and check. I'm not going to go back and check right now because we have so much to go over this review. But like, I'm almost 99.9% sure that Elaine wasn't even like gonna die when she used up all of her power and Bon came and saved her in the middle of the Fairy King's Forest thing. I think he just like gave it up because Nakaba wanted to nerf him. And now look at this. It haunts us. And it brings up the fact of Bon's mortality, which is always like a thing that now happened once he became mortal again. Where before he could have just lived with his life eternally. Whether that be through Merlin buffing Elaine's revive spell with Infinity Enhance to make sure she never left, just tethering her to the mortal plane, or casting the Chronostasis spell on her, which Merlin has already done for herself to allow herself to be basically immortal. So just let the two immortals immortal it out forever, which would have been easier and readily accessible at the time. But instead you have Bon make himself mortal again. And he's just a guy. And he's just like, he's a very durable guy, but he's still just a guy. I don't get that. Like, narratively, or power scaling wise, now that we've gotten to this point, I don't get why we had to nerf him. Feels really weird. Like once again, it feels like Nakaba... I almost, like, just as many ways that, like, many part 1 aspects of the plot have seemingly been dropped or entirely forgotten or rewritten or retconned. I feel like Nakaba had a different direction for the Sins and the utilization of the narrative in mind, but then changed his mind again, and I'm talking, like, multiple layers of it. Like, I think he had a specific idea for how they were going to be utilized all the way back when he started nerfing them en masse at the end of Sevendeadlysins itself. Then he had a different idea how he's going to use them in part 1, and then he has a different idea of how he's going to use them now. Because to contrive this giga-stupid situation so Cath could win, it works for Cath, but it just makes her Cath feel so stupid and weird and oddly out of character. Like, we'll get more into it, because it continues in this chapter. But we see Meliodas turns, back in base for some reason, he turns, he goes, "You mean..." "Yep, he's manipulating time on me." And hey, are you going to see me, local power scaler man, that guy with the pencil, be sad that Cav has time hacks? No. It just reinforces the whole, like, chaos being 4D. Or, like, at least creating a realm with a separate time space that's infinite. Like just put a Cav up there. Got good chaos up there. I'm not complaining about that. We wrap it up on that. But, that aside, Like, I'll admit, he looks so hilariously smug, smiling over his massive human pectorals. Oh, he's so scrappy dude. But regardless, cool. Chaos has time powers, and we're getting those more explicitly shown to us. Especially considering it makes sense. The demons seem to have a lot more fundamental control over space. I think of Alaskula and her warp gate abilities, and even just like demons' propensities to travel through space somehow. I don't know why they do that, but it's a notable weird, like, a lot of, if you look through a lot of like the weird ceiling stuff that Meliodas and like even Zeldas have interactions with, the demons have like a weirdly high correlation with space in some of these sins, like darkness and space, which I guess makes sense because space is dark. And then like goddesses have a very high association with time. If you remember the entire flashback arc that King and Diane go through to get their buffs, aka Droll's Dance and King's wings starting to grow, that was facilitated by a goddess spell that at least is heavily implied to have been taught to Droll and Gloxinia by Elizabeth. Time for goddesses and space for demons. It just seems to be a thing. So it makes sense that the apex of light and darkness would also have the apex, the ability to manipulate time and space. I do admit, though, it does feel weird that outside of creating their own realms, that the Demon King and Supreme Deity don't really seem to have much time stuff at all. Don't see the Supreme Deity? Supreme Deity didn't get much time at all, though, to like do literally anything. And it's kind of weird. Like, especially now, knowing that Nakaba is willing to show us, hey, BT dubs, I'm more than willing to design other realms on different timescales in the mortal realm. Like, it just, like, as I'm talking about, like, weird intentional choices by Nakaba, that's another, like, weird intentional choice. To be like, yeah, the gods, they can create separate time spaces, but they can create separate spaces, specifically spaces, but they're gonna run on the same time scale as the original mortal realm. Meanwhile, Chaos is to create separate time spaces entirely with like the world beyond. And maybe like, well, maybe Nakaba did that to show the difference between like the gods and their creator, right? And I would say and agree with that if the Supreme Deity didn't already have aspects of herself, pieces of her power, making separate spaces. Remember the Domain of God that Tariel Zariel created? That was done with like a fourth of the Supreme Deity's power. And presumably they can access it individually. They just did it together because it worked together. But like they used their graces to do that. So like we already saw that even with portions of godly power, you can make separate spaces. So why can the Supreme Deity, the Demon King only make separate spaces? I don't know. Regardless, all that aside, Kath is big cheesing. And we see that Bond begins to actively theorize and go, should have realized that when I fought the four evils. Oh, man, this vocal cord stuff is rough. Even if he could fully revive them from a pile of gory flesh, he couldn't have fixed their armor, too. Once again, if you don't think it sounds intelligent, but I'm sorry, this guy literally is chaos. As far as like they don't know. Once again, going to the idea of like what we know versus what the characters know. They don't know that Kath doesn't have full access to chaos and Arthur's power. They don't know about that. Kath will go on to reveal it later on, like tune it up. But to be fair, he already did kind of reveal he doesn't have all of it. But still, like from what they know of Kath's interactions, he literally made the alternate space that is Camelot. You think he can't remake armor? You think chaos power? Oh no, the big bad crutch is armor. Can't heaven forbid, chaos, the power that can create literal separate dimensions. Heaven forbid it be unable to remake armor unless time manipulation was involved. I mean, like, sure, it's a nice way to tie the time manipulation thing into like a universal thing that Kath always does, at least subconsciously maybe, but still feels really weird for a guy who our main cast and our sins know for a fact has done much grander scale things. Like, one of his guys can literally cut space. But that aside, we see, I suppose he was using his chaos power to turn back time. Or just remaking them entirely. Let's see. I whooped Ironside a while back. Judging by his armor, he went back to when he was first chaos ridden. Which is interesting. And does technically make sense because his armor never got repaired. Totally back in like chapter 20 something, like 23, when he first meets up after the battle with Percy and his crew, where he gets infected by Nasi's poison. That chip in his armor never gets repaired. Oddly, it is a thing that is just a thing. I don't know why it is that way, but it is just how it be. And we see that Kath goes, "How nice of you to notice before you die." Hmm? And naturally, Kath realizes, wait a second, hold on. He's doing a whole lot of yapping for a guy who should be dead. And he says, my chaotic power may be incomplete, but I'm so interested. He does the P thing so randomly. He doesn't do it in his own head. Is it a speech impediment thing? Like, his thoughts are normal, but he can only, because, like, there's B. He's not saying blocking it or put. He's saying but and blocking. Why do you do the P thing, Cat? I still don't know what that is. I was like,
my chaotic power may be incomplete, but it should have turned this human into a skeleton by now. What's this, though? He stopped aging. No, someone is blocking it. But who? Where are you? Where?
So, call little Merlin upscale, because like obviously he's Merlin, but like call little Merlin upscale for her to be in a separate, presumable also dimension, right? Or at least separate space, right? Presumably separate space. Well, who knows? With Arthur's Remainder of Chaos, maybe he did make a little separate time space. I don't know, because it seems like just like everything else Chaos made, the world beyond was made with a thought. Like it isn't like there isn't like much evidence of Chaos being wow, creating an entire separate time space. That sure took a lot out of it. He like poofed that out of existence or into existence, just like he poofed the gods into existence. But that aside, Merlin, from an entirely separate realm, admittedly still directly engaged in the battle, through a proxy, is able to directly interfere with what is supposed to be, at bare minimum, 51% of chaos. I say 51%, but like realistically, does this look like a guy? Does that look like a guy who has even like 2% of chaos? It really doesn't. But regardless, we're gonna really lowball Cav and say 50% of chaos, or 51% of chaos, since he has a majority of it according to himself. Most of chaos, as he says. And Merlin's able to just hard interfere from that from an entirely separate realm. Very impressive of her. Of course, she's presumably focusing all that on magic and doesn't do any dodging as he goes, got you. Now, once again, to talk about how I'm not gonna blame last chapter's stupidity. I'm not gonna blame last chapter's stupidity on this chapter. I'm gonna blame this chapter's stupidity on this chapter. Why did they stop attacking Cap? Like, there are 3 of you here. Admittedly, Gother's not here. No, there's one character who does not appear in this entire chapter, and it's Gother. I found that weird, but to be fair, wouldn't be the first time Gother snuck a god. I was talking about that a lot last review. Like, hey Gother, bring. Maybe time to sneak your 3rd god, right? Third. Yeah, because the only way he against Cap in the initial run, yeah, it'd be his 3rd, because it'd be the Demon King first. Technically, he did the Demon King twice though. He did the Demon King twice. So I guess it will take like his 3rd god, but his 4th time sneaking a god. Because he did it initially against Demon King Mel. Then he did it again against Demon King Zell. He did it again against the Supreme Deity with Breaker Off. And then... Well, actually, no, technically... Well, I wouldn't say it's sneaking. He stuck an attack in there. He was, like, directly fighting the Demon King when he used Kill Switch, I'm pretty sure. So, he snuck the Demon King Mel. He snuck Demon King Zell. And he ended up sneaking the Supreme Deity. So maybe this is all building up to a Gother sneak or something, but still, timelines got a timelines. I don't know. But with it being the case, where was I going with that? Oh, why are they just standing around and not attacking Cath? King, attack Cath. Mel, attack Cath. Like, you would think this would, if anything, this would make Mel bloodlusted. But he stands around in base, sitting there looking at Cath, letting him do this whole little laughing thing. Like, he's just standing there. Why? Like... Once again, if the Sins weren't some of the most vicious and vile creatures I've ever seen when it comes to annihilating an opponent they don't like, I'd be like, fine, whatever. If this was like... it's Dragon... I love Dragon Ball. But there are a lot of... like, it's such a consistent thing in Dragon Ball that I'm like... Okay. Okay. These things happen. Where, like, they'll just stand there and let the opponent do things, you know? And notably, the one thing I'll give Dragon Ball is that's usually intentional. When Goku or Vegeta... Trunks is really bad with it. But like when Goku or Vegeta, and sometimes even Gohan, depending on where he is in his arc, or his redone arc, or his redone arc, they will just stand there and let their opponents do things. But that's like a part of their character, and it's intentional hubris and or character flaw. That's not a Sin thing. Do you remember how they were doing Hendrickson? They didn't let that man breathe. Do you remember how they were doing the Demon King? They also did not let that man breathe. Kind of, sort of. But, like, even the Supreme Deity, how many people had budget in that movie? But, like, whenever the Sins are, do you remember how they're doing Belascula? They would consistently keep up pressure. But now that they're actually giving an opponent they consistently keep up pressure on, they're just standing around and letting him do things? Like, King, Diane, what are you doing? But, of course, we see Cath lunge out, super chaos schmeat, bro. Just lunge out, and all the tentacles and all, and slurp up an individual. This goes...
Oh, come on. You, that magic force. So that's where you were. Merlin.
And yeah, it's Merlin's doll. So she was interfering in saving Bond's life. I do think that is sweet. Once again, I'm still, like, my opinion on Merlin fluctuates depending on, like, the phase of the moon, bro. Like, legit, sometimes I'm like, I really, really, really don't like this filthy, stupid, dumb plot device of a character. But other times I'm like, maybe it's not too bad. So, like, it really is like a flip-flop on how I feel about the character. But I'll admit, I do like these moments of humanity for her. And as even Kath himself will go on to point out, as we see Escanrio, oh, Merlin, I can't do anything because you gave me this body. And we see that Diane goes, that's Merlin? Do not help her, by the way. Do not attack Kath. When we will see you go on later on in this chapter to speed blitz run up and attack Kath. Don't attack Kath. Just let him do this. But regardless, we see that Kath goes,
what a nice surprise. Even a witch like you has feelings, eh? Not even you can watch your old friend die here.
And that is very, very sweet. Especially, like, if you'll remember, Bond and Merlin, of the limited interactions we got between the original series, one of my favorite interactions between some of the Sins in terms of how fantastic they are as a group and their character dynamic is specifically Merlin dealing with a heavily inebriated Bond back in the Edinburgh extra story. Like, that was one of my favorite interactions where Merlin ends up just gaslighting Bond and doing a bunch of push-ups instead of fighting her. And also those two just, like, hanging out. They do have some sort of bond. And it's nice to see Merlin realistically putting herself at risk, putting herself and Arthur at risk in order to protect one of her friends, one of her fellow Sins. A person that, even unlike Belle, she didn't actually know for that long of her existence. She's known Bond for what? Maybe a percent of her lifespan. Remember, Merlin is also one of the few characters that lived the 3,000 year time skip. So, Bond being around for 50 years of that, at most, right? I forget what Bond's actually age is. He's like 50 at most. So, 50 into 3,000. I can do that math. I'm not that bad. 600. 600. I think, right? 600? Because 5, yeah. 600. So, whatever, 1/600th of her lifespan she's known Bond. But she wasn't going to sit there and let him fall, so she ultimately did interfere and give herself up, essentially. And we see she plays it a little bit as she goes, this is not real Merlin. You will never be able to reach Arthur. And once again, they're standing by while... Like... And you know what? Here's my thing, right? Here's my thing. I know what some of y'all may be saying. Pencil Man, ultimately, while it is called Four Knights of the Seven Deadly Sins, it's not the Seven Deadly Sins story anymore. They could not defeat Kath. It's not their role in the narrative. It's not what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to lose to our current main antagonist. It's kind of the law, the universe of these things. Would you like it if suddenly Naruto and Sasuke were to reappear in Boruto and suddenly take the whole plot over and just win it all and then keep pushing and completely invalidate the new main cast? I would not. I completely understand that side of the argument. However, I'm afraid it's really hard to have your cake and eat it too in this context. If you wanted me to more further buy into these things, you cannot suddenly dumb down, out of character, and like really spontaneously nerf the characters you were just glazing. These characters who are known to be actively malicious creatures when it comes to dealing with opponents they especially despise. And especially considering we have characters like Meliodas, who has said multiple times, I'm not going to hold back, and he still hasn't even got assault mode, mind you. Like, to genuinely put me in this scenario and only have Kath win, not by his own merit as an antagonist. That'd be one thing. If he was just strong enough, or crafty enough, or no, he's an idiot. He's an incompetent idiot who's only allowed to get off what he's getting off because no one's doing anything. For a good example of taking powerful characters who may break the plot and override a major antagonist, removing them from the narrative for an extended period of time, read Ichi the Witch. There is, in the early, like this is, and to be fair, Osamu Sensei is a very experienced writer. They wrote over 400 chapters of Iruma Sensei, or over 350 chapters of Iruma Sensei before they even started Ichi the Witch. And I don't even think Ichi Iruma Sensei's or Iruma-kun is like their first manga. But regardless, it's not like Seven Deadly Sins or Four Knights is Nakaba's first manga either. So this isn't an excuse. Nakaba's not an inexperienced writer. So, in that manga, in Ichi the Witch, there is an extremely powerful character who would literally fundamentally break the plot if she was involved too often. But there are multiple times where she is intelligently plucked out of the narrative based on circumstances that make sense in the context of the universe. Do something like that for the Sins. They deserve that due respect. As cool as the glaze and the slop is, to have them lose by being stupid and out of character undermines all the glaze you give. You can't tell me these are the coolest, strongest, smartest guys around who do everything amazingly, and then have them be this dumb, and me be like, I'm not gonna clap like a seal for that. It's just stupid. Just stupid. And they all sit here and watch Kath go, oh no. And he crunches and eats the Merlin doll, scrumdiddlyumptious. And once again, Mel standing there in base, looking on. Escanor. I'll give Escanor a pass. He literally can't do anything. The man's barely a man. He can't do anything. But Mel could do something. He could have stopped that. King could do something. He could have stopped that. Diane, as we'll see later on in this very chapter, could have done something. She could have stopped that. But no, they're all standing there letting him do this. And we see Kath go,
now that I've sampled the taste of your magic, it matters a little.
Which also doesn't make any sense. Kath, you literally said she ripped you apart from Arthur. You didn't taste her magic then? Majority of the power kids, but you couldn't taste her magic then? Stupid. But regardless.
Hide away anywhere you want. I'll just track the scent right over to you.
Which, be a crazy, interesting tracking feat. If Bon or if Kath were to actually be able to literally smell Merlin. Sounds so weird, like across dimensions. And then hunt her down that way. That'd be weird, but a cool little tracking feat. But I do like this shot of Kath. He still has the weirdest build out there. But hey, I can't blame him. I want those back muscles and that shoulder. But regardless, we see now suddenly. Oh wait, now that we're here, we should actually probably attack the guy who we should have never stopped attacking. We should actually gank the guy that we should have been ganking. What legendary idea! I felt my elbows crack. I am getting old. But regardless, we see Kath as he literally gets back shots from multiple increase spears, and we see Kath's face literally get torn open. Now, I'm gonna do a little itty bitty something called upscale. I didn't see Diane Droll's dance once. I literally told Roman about this once. I didn't see a single dance from Diane. All I'm smelling is upscale. It's delicious. Base Diane upscales able to damage Kath. Yes. But regardless, we see Diane tear Kath's face open, and she goes, "You'll pay for this. You could have stopped it." And we see that King says, "Time to take you down." Why was it not time to take him down before, you idiots? Why? Why were you just standing there? But we see they just go jolt, and we see that Kath goes,
Whoa. I'd advise against the idea.
and suddenly, and they stop. Why did they stop? I'm assuming this was a ground gladius that split Kath's face open or something, because it's not like Diane's actually in range. But regardless, why did you stop? As we see, Kath goes, I'm assuming it's the beast speaking back to Kath, saying, and some of these designs are actually kind of reused. I do like that though, because this design looks familiar in particular. Actually reminds me of Dale's demon form. But regardless, we see the creatures respond back to the crater like, we've captured all the evacuated humans. And we see all the humans go, no, help me. And the many humans go, ah. Once again, what was the plan? I'm not going to go too into it. Like I said, I'm not going to blame. There's enough stupidity in this chapter that I don't need to blame previous stupidity. Once again, I will ask, what was the plan? Even if this was Arthur. They should have known Arthur could do things like this. He did it before. He did it in the first time he invaded Leonis. What were you thinking, guy? But regardless, we see Pelio goes, the monsters! They're back alive! Thank you, Pelio. I really would have been able to tell. Because you see, I'm actually blind in my right eye. And I'm like 84% blind in my left eye. But regardless, we see that Kath goes, so, and smacks his head back together.
What's your next move?
Yeah, it was Ground Gladius. They did that. So base Diane upscale regardless. But that aside, he smacks his face back together and says,
the one man who could fell them all at once is sidelined.
Which he is. Vaughn does not actually move at all this chapter, so his old age does hold him down a whole lot. Though he is shockingly durable, as we'll see. But regardless, we see that Kath goes,
if you'd like to fight me anyway, then go right ahead.
And we see Nasians. And also, why are they here? Like, I know they need it, but like, I know the knights are off fighting the good fight in, or like trying to find Merlin or whatever, but like, why did this have to happen now? Why are you idiots? Because now Nasians is obviously like everyone's fodder, right? Even Nasians is fodder. Only my glorious, handsome, legendary, juicy, throbbing King Ballin can actually stand a chance against these monsters because he's literally the GOAT. So yeah, Nasians gets literally. I'm not sure if this is slashed in half or just slashed across the chest. It's probably just across the chest. But regardless, we see that Kath says,
assuming you don't mind losing all these hostages along the way.
and naturally, Nasians gets cut, and both their parents are like, no, why does Diana look so small here? But no, she goes, Nasians! And King goes, stop it! And we see Kath go,
Made up your mind?
this is... I haven't even played Final Fantasy VII, bro. This gives me such strong Kate Sith vibes, bro. And he looks so content with himself. I'll admit, this is one of my favorite Kath battles out there. But we see he starts doing the P thing again. I don't get it.
He says, wanna continue this paddle or not?
And we see Diane drops a Gideon. King drops the spirit spear, or the increased spears, and goes, all right, do what you want with it. King? He doesn't have a full name. King Feritreus the Third.
Or you literally have a barrier. You have a barrier that heals people.
I don't care how fragile the shield would be. If you're that worried about your daughter, put it around her.
And then go back to beating Kath's cheeks in. No, not gonna do that. Just gonna give up.
Like, you can trust this thing?
Like he wouldn't.
Like they are so stupid. Like it is brain meltingly stupid how stupid these characters are. It is like, I always joke about like authors. I don't know how many keys there are, but like authors jingling keys in front of your face to be like, yeah, look at this, look at this. This is like the plot and character version of jingling keys. Usually action is like, well, I'd say like meaningless action. There's a complicated whole thing about it, but essentially sometimes it does just feel like an author is jingling keys in front of your face to be like, don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it. But unfortunately, there's nothing but the stupidity to acknowledge here. I can't not think about it. But this, you put this in front of me. You made these characters this stupid, and we see they go, I'm sorry, Captain. And Meliodas is once again still just standing there. But guess what? He finally goes, Demon Mark. Heaven forbid he goes assault mode, dog. As he goes, Kath! And instantly, Kath goes,
why that look?
As Hauser gets back-shotted, Gila gets front-shotted. We see a bunch of civilians get, like, at least about to get pierced up and stabbed up. And we see Meliodas go, oh no, you mean the evil Chaos Man who said he literally wanted to devour and destroy all of creation is going to devour and destroy all creation? I can't. Dog, your son's not even here. He doesn't even have a hostage for you. Who cares about all these people? like obviously, I care about all these characters. I love Gila, I love Hauser. But regardless, Meliodas, what do you think? Like, he's literally gonna go on and ask something so stupid. Like, I want to reach to the manga and smack him, bro. I would like his in half body, bro. I want to reach to the manga and smack it. As we see Meliodas stand down, like everyone else stands down, right? He's about to fight, but he stands down. And we see Kath just tearing things up. Isolde goes for a run, tears streaming down her face as presumably Meliodas here is bloodied. And we see she runs all the way to the castle, which is unharmed, shockingly enough. As we see Kath scratch and swing against Bond, but Bond's literally just fine. Like, he is truly the strongest thing there is. Like, seemingly enough, stronger than base and Demon Mark. Well, to be fair, goes into Demon Mark when he gets split in half. But still, we know he's in base when he gets split in half. But regardless, he's bulky, even as an old man. His internals may be failing, but in terms of his externals, his musculature and skin is still immaculate. As Kath goes,
how was your body?
Once again, he's not doing the P thing there. He says body. Let's see.
So how was your body so darn solid, old man?
And we see King, brutalized, laid out, because he's stupid, go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have reminded him that he's human. Why am I so stupid? Knock, how could you forsake me like this? Go, oh. And then Kath says,
meanwhile, the Fairy King's like a piece of wet paper.
And King is just breathing heavy. And standing by, watching as his wife gets absolutely annihilated. Now I love Nazis. He had 7 backup kids, bro. Was not needed. As we see Kath go,
and oh, the giants. Oh, what fun they are to cut up into fine pieces.
And King goes, stop. I like, Like, you can probably already tell. I haven't even got to the end of the chapter. You can probably already tell. You can probably already feel it in your bones, bro. But let's keep going. Let's keep going. As we see Kath go,
Well, 7 deadly sins. I've beaten you.
see, he's doing the beating again.
I've beaten you. This band of pod billers.
I know he doesn't do it for all of them, but still, it's weird.
And that makes me your poo pod.
So stupid.
Piff, pot, pat, pen, pot.
Yeah, Meliodas literally is spirit. And in fact, is he in? Yeah, he's in base. But he literally has hand through his torso. Same Meliodas I was thinking, like, no damage from before, even in base, mind you. But regardless, he's sitting there and goes, and then Meliodas goes,
Let go of them. The hostages. Like you promised.
Brody. You thought I literally, if I had the power to manifest into a manga, bro, and smack a character across the face for being, I don't care if I couldn't do an atom of damage to Meliodas, because I couldn't. I just want to reach into the manga and smack him upside the head. What do you mean? Because as Kat aptly says,
You clawed.
why would he ever do that? Why would he ever keep a promise to you? Why are you this stupid? Why are you this dumb? Like, I hate. I'm not even gonna, like, yo, I was gonna I'm not sugarcoating it. This is so stupid. It's so stupid. Like, it is so stupid. It didn't need to be. I'm literally like, I'm gonna do a rewrite. Like, after this little section is over, because it's gonna keep going, right? We're still in the middle of it. I'm not sure chapter 228 holds. There's only something to do with the list. It's probably gonna lead to that part of the feature flashback, whatever. But like, it is so fundamentally stupid. Like it actively hurts my poor little noggin. My poor little brain is in agony thinking about how stupid this is. But we see the people go, my liege, as Donnie holds Elva, and we see Bon go,
Meliodas.
and Henderson goes, no, the heroes of legend have lost because they were stupid. And we see another person. I don't even recognize this guy. But he goes,
It's over. All of it.
and we see that Pelio asks, I think it's Pelio, not Pelio, what's his name? Edlin asks, who could ever stand up to a monster like that? And Deodora's holding something. I don't know who's sealed in there, but like, presumably someone could stand up to him, and like, Deodora's waiting for the last moment to unseal him, I'm guessing. Still don't know where Gother is. So like, maybe this is all stupid because it's all Gother messing with Kath's head or something, I hope. But regardless, we see Theodora holding something. I still don't know the full context for this. But that being the case, we see this. Isol reporting to Elizabeth and going, please, Queen Elizabeth, you must evacuate at once. Leonis will fall shortly. Its people are taken hostage. His Majesty, the other sins, the citizens of Leonis, and those we rescued from Camelot. I fear there. I failed to protect this land in Prince Tristan's absence. I can never bear to see his face again. But I at least hope to die, resisting that menace. And I want you to save yourself. How would she escape, Isol? How would she escape? Tell me. Yeah, she has a battle teleport bead? Like, how would she escape? Look at my Glorious King Bartra, too, though. Look at my Glorious King Bartra. But regardless, we see Elizabeth go, you do realize I'm like the 8th honorary sin, right? I haven't done anything just yet, and I haven't even reached my future part of the flashback, or my part of the future vision. And she goes, that's enough of that. Isolde, you have a future with Tristan ahead of you. I'm sure it'll be fine. Just take care of my father, all right? And that's very sweet. See Elizabeth put so much faith in her future daughter-in-law. Future daughter-in-law that she may not get to see, depending on if she lives. But she goes, as Isolde naturally goes, my queen? As both Slater and Bartra stand back like, what's she doing, dog? She's actually doing something in this manga? But we see that Elizabeth says, this is not the end of Leonis. All of its people, and the 7 deadly sins as well. I swear, I will protect them, even if it means losing my own life. And that's the end of the chapter. Now, see this? I see it. Wait, the worthiness. Real cool. Real sleek, real handsome even, I'd say. Yeah, I'm not really. This chapter isn't worthy. This chapter's also buns. You may be like, well, Pencil Man, didn't you say you weren't? Yeah, as I said many times about this review, I am not blaming the circumstances of this chapter on this or the circumstances that led to this chapter on this chapter on its worthiness rating. I'm not going to do that because that's unfair. That's unfair. I do, personally, shock horror, local man does not believe in sins of the father. not a thing on my end. However, like I said, this chapter is filled with so much of its own stupidity, its own idiocy, its own like not just bad writing, like sharply out of character writing. Like it's that bad. Specifically, I may have been able to give the chapter like a 5 out of 10, maybe, if it wasn't for this line from Meliodas. If it wasn't for this, let go of them, the hostages, like you promised. Now, if you're wondering if this chapter will be made retroactively worthy, and last chapter will be made retroactively worthy, this is all Gother illusion, because Gother has not shown up this chapter. We got a Merlin and Escanor appearance, before we got a Gother appearance this chapter. No, not really. I'll think about it, maybe. Like, if it's all Gother illusion, they're all actually going crazy on Kath, but once again, as I mentioned in this very review, it's not the Seven Deadly Sins story. So I don't think Gother is going to be the super clutch awesome man to save everybody. I doubt it. Because it's not this isn't their time to win. So, this isn't their story to win, essentially. Unless we do think there's going to be a major antagonist coming after Kath, and then Kath has been to, like, take the past away, and this, that, and the third, and the future stuff. But, like, regardless, this chapter's just buns. I like the character writing in it. The only character, you know, shock horror, considering how much I've been clowning on him, the only character I like in this chapter is Kath. Because actually kind of good with the sauce. Sure, he's being fed, like, every opportunity ever. Like, he's literally dealing with training dummies right now, for how stupid everyone's being. You can even drop the train, just dealing with straight dummies. But he's funny. He's funny. I like his design. He's cool. He gives like the chapter. He alone gives the chapter like a 2. Almost every other character in the chapter, stupid. The writing around the chapter, dumb. I hope Elizabeth clutches up or does something cool. But outside of that, that's it. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, sorry. I try to be more positive on the channel, but like I do want to be honest with y'all. If y'all watch the end of this chapter or the end of this review, please leave. Well, it be like that when it be like that. I know it's a long phrase. Welp, be like it. Welp, it be like that when it be like that. Sorry, whole 10 words, but that's kind of how I feel. It'd be like that, it'd be like that. So, well, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, there is no live reaction for this one, but there will be a live reaction for the next chapter. I'm presumably going to record that right after this one, so I can actually really hop into it. But with it being the case, I want to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that link to notifications so you can help us out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, you're going to have a Patreon below. You support me for as low as $1. Get them on things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You're going to become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of the perks include the live reactions, here are the shoes I have to review, I do reactions to all my videos, early ad free access to all my videos, your name at the end of literally every single video, and all your name at every single video, and then every early content, every content on the second channel that got the reaction. Link in the description down below, and then the card in the upper right hand corner. And on top of that, I do have a link to my Twitch in the description down below. I stream every Friday 8 p.m. ES Tizzle. Feel free to roll through. And also, I have my Ko-Fi down there. 5 things for a short video, 20 things for a long video, or any views at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you so much for watching. Once again, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. Alright, lady, well, thank you to our sketch tier members: Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Glacier XZ, Zera, J2MA, Bura Ura, Yuki Ally, Grim, Ollie, The Boy, Corey Watson, Damon Brown, Dino, Tim Thomas, Kaving, ORXN, Logan Guzman, Dead Mean, Keon Stewart, Donovan McIntosh, BNA DNA, Edwin Ingbinorba, Straw, Antavius Mitchell, Superflame Zero, Weary Exile, Window Life, Alex Kenny, Todd, The Practical One, Landon Clapwick, Heath Nelson, CAET, Jagoda, Plant Crone, Striker Man, Brendan Payne, Black Sage, Multi Batman Superman, Zalims, Joe B, Sleepin' John, The Young Family, Pastel Pandora, Karina Hernandez, Mo City King DKG, Andrew Bonet, John Malcolm, Akalade Babatunde, ASD 1234, Jesse Clapp, CCC, Ramondo Furin, Sky XT, Victor Jacobs, Axis XC, Osin Tibwit BDM, Kingly, at JDong2656, Union Eye, Marisol Boyd, Funny Dude, Athenzi Shear, Magic, Sino King, and Sheesh King.
Then I'd like to give a thank you to our line art tier patrons, A+A, Dread Zoen, Corina Hernandez, Kevin Encarnacion, Lil Koto, and Sean. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our Ink tier member, Shrimpo the 4th Shrimp 06. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our digital art tier members, J Warrior and AZ Void. And I'd like to give a final thank you to our colored art tier patrons, Walking Minnows, and Ernesto 430.